All right, hello everyone, and welcome to a discussion of magic in fantasy. Is magic actually essential to fantasy? And if it is, what is the function of magic in fantasy? What can it do for readers? Why is it there? We're going to have a broad-ranging discussion about magic. We're going to use some examples. We're especially interested in today's discussion in examples of fantasy, maybe historical fiction, where it's very low fantasy, very low magic, because it can be very subtle sometimes, and there may be a distinction to be made between what the reader perceives and what the characters perceive within the story. So essentially, yeah, why is there magic in fantasy? What does it do? And for my guest to discuss this very serious matter is Vaughn Roycroft, the author of the Sundered Nation Trilogy. I've got two of the books behind me. They are the Severing Sun and Bold Ascension, and book three, Destiny's Doom. I recently finished and absolutely loved. It's a brilliant conclusion to a highly emotional and wonderful trilogy that is a fascinating take on Goths meet Romans. So you've got the more barbaric culture meeting the civilized culture and the clash between their ideals and everything else. And is there magic in the Sundered Nation trilogy, Vaughn? Is there?
That's the $5 question, isn't it? Yeah, I consider it to have magical elements, certainly. But I was talking to you about this before, and I said this is one of the first things that I commented upon on your channel. And I just looked at the video actually, and it was 4 years ago.
Wow. Huh.
But yeah, you were. It was a response of what key elements belong in fantasy to your nemesis had
Uh-huh. Oh, yes, the AP
trading
Academy.
videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you listed magic as your number one element,
Yeah.
and I said in the comments, I think there might be a book coming out soon that I would consider to be almost free of magic, very low in magic. And we kind of had a conversation started from there. So it was kind of this very topic that you and I first began talking about
Huh.
four
Yeah.
years ago. So
Well, that's pretty full circle. That's something magical about that right there.
yeah, there you go. But yeah, I did keep the books fairly low magic purposefully. Well, actually, I take that back because when I began, I didn't think about it all that much. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't consider what my magic was going to be very much. I was more concerned about the characters and the setting and the world building and all those sorts of things. And religion was something that I thought about quite a bit.
Hmm.
But I hadn't considered, and I got mostly into. I didn't do an outline per se, but I wrote chunks of story that connected to one another that sort of functioned as a big outline.
Yep.
And as I got going, I finally considered the fact that, well, nobody really has any magical powers here. Um, but I did have ideas for uh, deities imbuing people. And I always, I guess as it evolved, I just always wanted to keep it that the reader had to decide whether or not this was really happening.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, as it evolved, I just kind of kept it out. I wasn't that interested in it. It's not that I dislike magic in stories. Quite a few. My Some of my favorite stories are like Robin Hobb, for example.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorites. She has two types of magic:
Yeah. The
uh,
wit and the skill.
wit
Yeah.
and the skill. I
Yeah.
love the fact that they play off each other too. You know, the wit is considered sort of dirty magic, or
Hmm.
animal based
By the society at any rate.
by society, right? And the skill, they both have their costs,
Hmm.
but they lend a lot to the story, but they almost become more complications than solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in many cases, obviously there are times when they are solutions. The magic is useful to the magic wielder, but that was one of the things that I just wanted to stay away from, was having magic be a solution
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
problems. I wanted magical elements that complicated things as opposed to solving things.
Interesting. So, and there are some precedents for that approach. I mean, we both are can trace our love for fantasy to the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's writing. And in the Lord of the Rings and in his writing in general, yes, there's magic, but a lot of the major things that happen are not magical. Like Gandalf does not hugely change events through magic in the Lord of the Rings. It's pretty subtle, very low magic, as they say these days, right?
Right.
So it's a good example, I think, of a series where there's a sense of the numinous. There's a sense of the spiritual, or just a sense of reverence in there. But the kind of when you say magic, like say in Malazan, or or in a Brandon Sanderson book, or any number of fantasy words, that magic is just there and it's very present, and it explodes, and it's constantly being used as a as a device that has a huge impact on the story. It's much more subtle in the Lord of the Rings, isn't it?
Yeah. And in fact, you think about the characters and as they face their various plights and the journey and so forth, and they never even consider, like when Gandalf's with the hobbits, for example, they you don't find them seeking magic from him to solve their problems. That isn't an issue. The character development is very much about, we have to face this, we have to overcome it, and that was, I think, part of my what I wanted to do with my storytelling, was have the characters face things, and occasionally, you call upon the gods or so forth. We, humans do that all the time. I mean, is there really magic in the world if we're asking God to, bless an event or help us through something, or, these are very human things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that was a big part of my foundation, and I think a big part of why I ended up where I did with magic.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of people know this, but maybe some people will be surprised to learn that Tolkien actually did write a sequel, or began to write a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, which he abandoned. And I'm glad he did, because it's a very bleak piece of writing.
I haven't read it, but yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, no, I've read it. It's just a brief excerpt, but where it seems to be in this fourth age of Middle Earth is the magic's gone. The elves have left, and it's really bleak, and it's just very gritty, and it's like so. But the reverence is gone as well,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So what magic does exist in Lord of the Rings does seem to be an important part of the whole essence of it. But it's subtle at the same time, isn't it?
very much so. Very much so.
And he's not the only fantasy author to have this concept of the magic is leaking away from the world. That's a pretty common trope within
Yeah.
fantasy, isn't it? The
Right.
idea of magic, yeah, it was here at one time, but it is lessening now. And this
Yeah.
idea, we're in a fallen age. We're in a more primitive time. You can see that in so many series, like Wheel of Time, for example. We're in
Yeah.
an age now, it was less sophisticated, less understanding of magic than the previous age. Or First Law,
Yeah.
is the example of a series where, actually, in the initial First Law trilogy, you do have some magic, a fair amount, but it is leaking away from the world. And by the time you get to the sequel trilogy, Age of Madness,
Yeah. It's all but gone.
it's almost gone in
Yeah.
Age of Madness. Like, is there magic in Age of Madness? There's a bit of prophetic type magic, you could say, maybe.
Yeah.
The eye that, that
Yeah. Yeah.
all
But
that.
the machines have sort of taken over, and you see the progression too, in that the forces behind taking away magic. I mean,
Yeah.
it. I've heard Abercrombie often say that he was kind of doing the anti Gandalf thing. It's you know.
But
So
in this regard, he's doing the same thing as Tolkien, which is, when you introduce the machine, you take away the magic.
yeah.
Right?
And the natural forces, we're destroying nature rather than allowing nature to guide us,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And, you know, um, and in my world too, I consider the new world, old world thing is kind of a dividing line, and that's my portal aspect of my books is the Roman world versus the Gothic world.
Yes.
And the natural world is much more important in Dania, in the Gothic world.
Yes. The more
In
primitive people are more in touch with nature.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's more of a connection to nature, which I think, in my mind, equals a closer parallel to magic or magical spirituality. The spirit is separate from the flesh, and that there are forces in our lives that are beyond our comprehension. That
Huh.
sort of thing, not easily explained. Magic is, I guess, what can't be explained, right? So
Yeah, so in a sense, you could read magic in stories like this as a reflection of our own human history, particularly Western history, where people seem to be more willing to believe in magic in older societies. And the more modern we get, the more scientific we get, the more technological we get, the more dismissive we are of magic and spiritual matters. And fantasy seems to reflect that, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, and then that's what people talk about: hard magic versus soft magic. And
Hmm.
Scent of Wonder is a big part of all this for me. And Scent of Wonder is one of the primary things that makes a fantasy story. And even according to you, I think it was number 2 or 3 on your list
Uh-huh.
of 8 elements. But then I have nothing against Brandon Sanderson, but I am going to say the more, like in a Sanderson story, the more scientific the magic gets, the less wonder there is to it for me. For me
Right.
personally,
I'm in the same camp. Yeah.
I don't dislike his storytelling at all. I do enjoy, and he pulls you right along. But
Yeah.
the magic is a kind of a different thing. It's almost like it kind of starts to feel like a superhero story in a way. Like something scientific happened to this human who now has these
I-
powers and makes him somewhat separate from these other humans.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole hard magic thing, which I believe has a lot to do with gaming, video games and
Mm,
gaming in general, and then people's expectations about storytelling, and particularly in fantasy, have changed as a result of the influence of video games, where everything's about
level up.
leveling up, it's
Good.
about numbers and measuring things, and almost a scientific approach to magic, which, and I'm like you, maybe it's our age is speaking here,
Might
but
be.
I want more wonder. I want
Yeah.
this sense of something that I don't understand. I don't need to have this scientific explanation about how it all works because for me it kills the mystery of it to
Right.
some degree. But yes, I think that is definitely a difference that has arisen in our genre in these years, and I attribute it to video game and gaming influence, and that Sanderson is basically one of the more prominent examples, but and you could say maybe he's driving some of it too, but I think he's just reflecting where fantasy is going in some ways as well.
Right.
I also want to give him his due. He's brought lots of readers into the genre, and I'm not complaining about Brandon Sanderson. I think the guy's great. He's done some really good things, and I'm glad he's created a lot of passionate readers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's an important, and he himself is the person who makes this distinction between hard magic and soft magic. And he's a fan of some soft magic writers himself, like Tolkien, and another guy who can be very subtle in his use of magic in his books, and that's Guy Gavriel Kay,
Right. Right. Yeah.
who in some of his historical fantasies, with his famous quarter turn to the fantastic, uh, some of it's like in the Lions of Al Rasan, there's almost no magic except for this little tiny element of prophecy, of foreknowledge. And that's an interesting point too, I think, because it feels to me like whenever we get it whittled down to that little amount of magic, and this is true of Sundered Nation Trilogy too, I think, where magic exists in your book, if it exists, where it exists in your story is primarily in the realm of prophecy and foreknowledge and that kind of thing. So
Right.
why is it that that's the thing that remains? Why? And I think that maybe also tied to you were talking about deities earlier and
Right.
inspiration from the divine, a perhaps prophecy and foreknowledge being a reflection of the person being in a more in tune with the divine or out of time or something like that.
Right.
Like these memories of the future sort of thing that characters can have when they're transported or in such a way. So yeah, does that seem accurate to you, that observation though, that it's
Yeah.
whenever there's a little bit of magic, it's almost always prophetic in nature?
In fact, if you strip down uh, to that element of prophecy and foresight, there are a lot of stories that are considered historical fiction, Pillars of the Earth, for example, or the
Yeah.
Far Pavilions, or I know there are many, many others.
The Warlord Chronicles.
Warlord Chronicles.
Big time. Yeah.
They just that's the element, and I think maybe part of it is it's always been a part of human history, and I think part of it is first, I believe some people do believe that they have foresight. And then it's also a thing that's difficult to check on. You know what I mean? But
Uh-huh.
people who tend to make prophecies have a way of being able to adjust them as as things move forward into the future. It's
Yeah.
like, well, what I really meant was, and there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of
Uh-huh.
that sort of thing going on often in prophecy, or this was really just a curveball to trick you. The real prophecy is yet to come.
Right. You
You
were
know,
just misinterpreting or
right? You get a lot of this,
yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just something and motive, whether or not the person who is has the foresight or claims to have the foresight believes it themselves,
Yeah.
is always a mystery, and it's one of the reasons that I kept some of my prophetic characters I did not tell the story from their point of view.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Good decision. Yeah.
and
Then you'd
Amasalia,
have
for
to
example,
commit a little bit more, wouldn't you?
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I like Amasalia. Is she really channeling Freya, or is she just a dingbat? I mean, is she a little off her rocker? Or
Yeah.
does she have a motive? Is she trying to manipulate things?
Mm, mm.
So, and the same with Sa'el, who is the Skolani's dreamer in
Yes.
the story. She's often saying, and she kind of does it in this laughing sort of way of like, I was trying to tell you this was going to happen, and that
Uh-huh.
sort of thing. Always sort of guiding the characters toward what she wants them to believe is their destiny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that fate, destiny, and whether or not we have free will.
I mean, the book is called Destiny's Doom. So, uh, I
And
also, were you going to say something, Vaughn?
no, whether or not characters end up buying into it is is
Yes. Yeah.
is a big part of that. So
That's a big distinction here because the difference between the reader's perception and the characters within the story's perception of magic can differ. Where the characters might believe wholeheartedly that this is magic at work, whereas the reader can be a little bit more skeptical, like, oh, that seems ambiguous, actually. And I feel like you do that, you do play with that in your trilogy, but that also, and you tell me if you agree or not. I feel like as the trilogy progressed, there was a more emphasis on the prophecy and the prophetic, and that it seems to be less, for me, I felt less able to dismiss it as, okay, they're just, it's self-fulfilling, or it's them willfully interpreting this or that. There felt to be the tug of fate or something was just stronger in as the story progressed. And I don't know if you agree or not, but that
Yeah,
was my perception.
yeah, and I think I wanted it to still feel like it could be something that we build. Am I saying this right? We build our destiny through our actions. If we believe we are destined to something, if we have a strong belief, we can build that sort of like Valdan is always like whether or not he, I always say, drinks his own Kool-Aid, is
Uh-huh.
sort of how he changes in his life and the lives around him. And quite often, when he does drink his own Kool-Aid, he does some pretty stupid and shitty things.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It was these. I wanted to play with all these ideas, and that as I rewrote and rewrote the trilogy, they became more and more important to me thematically.
Hmm.
That are we choosing our destiny? Are we really fated at all? Fate versus free will. Are there things that we should be doing to fulfill what we're worthy of or capable of? You
Yeah.
know, all these things were on my mind as I wrote it, and of course that plays into magic because if there is foresight, that's a magical thing. I mean, think about it. It really is. It is quite a power. If you really had foresight,
Hmm.
it could be quite a powerful thing. Um,
Yeah. And there
so
is a link to the divine there, and even
yeah,
you were saying there's she's the idea that she's channeling Freya, that there's a larger thing that's maybe we've got some strings attached to us, and that does bring in the whole thing about free will versus fate, and
right.
how much volition do we have in our decisions, and can you, if you're a chosen one, can you say, nah, no thanks, I'll just I'd rather stay home and and drink tea, uh,
Yeah,
or is it gonna push you out one way or another, so all of that gets it's interesting to me though, because I do think that a lot of times where magic is ambiguous in a series, it tends to kind of ratchet up the magic, like in Warlord Chronicles. So a lot of people don't even recognize that as fantasy. They think it's historical fiction because maybe Bernard Cornwell writes historical fiction the rest
yeah,
of the time. I
yeah,
think it's fantasy, straight up fantasy.
yeah. It felt
First
like
of all,
that to me.
there's not a lot of history to base your fiction on from that era to begin with.
Right.
Secondly, as you progress through the books, it gets harder and harder. In the first book, yeah, I can see where someone would say, I can explain that away. That the character might think it's magic, but as a reader, we know it's not magic because these were somewhat primitive people, superstitious. So they see fog, they see a tree in a fog, and they think, oh, it's an ogre or whatever. That gets harder to dismiss, though, as the series goes on. So Dervel is clearly a believer in the magic, but then things happen. If you're going to believe, take him at face value as a narrator, things happen in the second and especially the third books where you're like, if this really happened the way he's telling, there's magic in this world, right?
Then you're back to, is he a reliable narrator?
Right, right.
So,
So they still, the people who still want to argue, no, it's historical fiction, they have an out there. They can say, oh, no, we're not supposed to believe Derville here because he's superstitious. He doesn't really know what's going on.
yeah. So I think that's kind of at the basis of everything I did too. And one of the things that I often think is I feel like there's magic that could obviously be explained away. I'll give you a small example.
Okay.
As a friend of mine who as a child, and he's an older fella, so this will make sense to you and maybe not to some of the younger people since they don't exist anymore. But pennies were important to him with his relationship with his mother because
Huh.
if he found a penny, then he was to save it and use it on penny candy at the store. And when he went to the store, he was given pennies for behaving, for being attentive, for being courteous to others. He got more and more pennies were the rate of exchange here. And so his mother passed away, and he
Mm.
was very close with his mother, and it was very sad. But now, whenever he finds a penny or sees a penny, he's attentive and attuned to things, and it always seems to be telling him something very important about either the moment or about his life at that time.
Huh.
And he has a number of stories about how important these pennies are. They're usually found pennies.
Huh.
And I'm like, well, it's coincidence, right? And it's just his mind is telling him, you find a penny, oh, there must be something mother's trying to tell me right now.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's explain it away. Easy peasy, right? But isn't that still magic? Isn't that a wondrous thing that the mind can be tuned into something that maybe it's not his mother speaking to him from the grave. Very few people would believe that, but
Huh.
it's still quite a magical thing in my mind. It's a small thing, but it's to
Uh-huh.
me it's got some magic to it.
Yeah.
So I just thought, there are a lot of little things like that we encounter that we can either consider to be magic or not. Oh, for example, you'll know about this too. As I was writing chunks of the story and sort of outlining it, very clear things would just pop into my mind, and I would be like,
Hmm.
where on earth is this coming from? I have no basis for this to have arrived.
Yeah.
For example, the character of Malvius
Hmm.
popped into my head fully formed. He was a member of the Greek aristocracy. He was also
He snuck right in there. That's just like him being so devious, isn't
right. I had a picture of him that still exists. I pictured him in a Stone City setting before I had created Thracias.
Huh.
I just knew all these things about him, and it just kind of flowed out of me. Some scenes with him in it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, where on earth did that come from? And it might be a combination of things. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a little Han Solo in there. Maybe there's a little, I don't know, where
Yeah.
I got this collection of this person, but he just popped in. Isn't that sort of magical? I mean, that our subconscious could present these story elements so fully formed that fit
Hmm.
right into what we're working on because of our focus on it, right?
Yeah. I've experienced a very similar thing with Saren in my third book.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another great example.
Yeah, and there is something magical about the creative process. And maybe we use the word magic just because we can't explain it entirely, but or maybe we're touching on something we don't entirely understand, something much bigger than ourselves when we're doing something creative, right?
Right.
So is that magic? I think it could be. I think it could be.
Yeah.
Certainly, it feels wondrous to me.
Oh, me too.
It
Beyond a
does
doubt.
feel wondrous, which brings me to my really the heart of this discussion, really, which is what's the function then of magic in fantasy? Why do we have it in the first place in this 21st century? Why are we reading books about wizards and witches and spells and whatnot and prophecies and so on? Why do we need this? What is the function of magic in fantasy? Any thoughts on that, Vaughn?
I think part of this, we have to go back to something you mentioned a little earlier, which is the sense of losing magic or lost magic.
Yeah.
And there's um, you called it, what did you call it? The looming past is one of your elements for what makes a fantasy story. And I think that's so
Yeah.
true that fantasy is often backward looking, but there's a sense of loss that things used to be so much better, like even in my own nostalgia's like that, but my own background and my own story, I'm like, things used to go so smoothly and be so easy and or happy or whatever it is. Remember how great it used to work out when we did this, or like there. I can see how that's a just a kind of a human nature thing,
Hmm.
but I think the magic in these stories has to tie into. I think that's why so many fantasies are sort of historical feeling, if not actually historical.
Yes.
Um, and
Because
it's
they're
just
tapping into a sense of past, of collective, as a mirror of ourselves. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I wonder if it's part of creating that immersive feeling of being in the past when things were better or happier, or I don't know about happier because
More
so many
magical, more
more
magical.
magical. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of it. What do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think you're onto some great thoughts there. I think you're right that we do feel like in many of us anyway, in modern society, feel that we've lost something important. And whether that be being in tune with nature or being in tune with the numinous, just having a sense of wonder that gives meaning to our lives. If you could actually know everything, explain away everything, you might actually be very sad and bored. You know. Um, but yeah, I feel that this was something you can go all the way back to Tolkien again with this, or William Morris,
Oh yeah,
or many of the earliest writers in fantasy were people who were responding directly to the world they found themselves in, which was a world that is more and more out of touch with nature and a world where we are increasingly isolated because of what we're doing to our surroundings, to our fellow creatures. We are increasingly isolated, and we need communion. We need communion with nature. We need communion with the sense of perhaps the divine, the numinous, or whatever it might be. And that's a kind of magic, if you will. And fantasy can give us a sense of while we're in the story at least, and maybe even when we wake up from the story. And when I was a kid, I read Lord of the Rings, and I would go for a walk afterwards in the forest, and you better believe that I felt differently about the forest after reading about Lothlorien. I felt the magic in the real forest as well. I almost wished I had could encounter an elf even, but of course I knew I wouldn't. But I felt that there was something that Tolkien did to my mind that restored a sense of wonder to me.
yeah.
That the world is miraculous and it's full of beauty and yes, peril, but let's not be blind to all of that. Let's not forget, this sense of wonder that seems to have been. And I don't want to idealize the past either because, the lives could be very brutal and harsh in older times as well. And certainly we're grateful for modern medicine and the convenience and the comfort of our homes and whatnot. But maybe we've lost something in that bargain. Maybe we've lost something that's actually more important than we realize in that bargain. And that when we're writing fantasy, when we're reading fantasy, we're engaging with fantasy, we are making an attempt to restore that, what we've lost. I don't know.
And I can see that Dayrhaven was being formed way back in your walks in the woods.
Yep, way back when. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I've always loved forests. I feel like that the forests are my spirit place or whatever. Yeah, it's where I feel most at home,
yeah,
walking in a forest. So
it's funny. I always say around where I live here, we live in an aging forest. It's kind of a regression forest, so it's very old, and we have a lot of limbs that fall down and trees dying, and the new growth is quite often not as attractive. I mean, we're losing 100-year-old oaks and beeches, and
yep.
we're gaining poplars and shagbark, and just the stuff isn't. The forest seems to be kind of evolving in a way that isn't as pleasant for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and then I go up in northern Michigan we have what we call the pine line, which is where the deciduous trees are become outnumbered by by the evergreens,
Yep.
and it's the forest seems so much newer and fresher and just lively. And our forests are sort of the floor of them is a lot of leaves and trampled, and very few plants can get through there, and so it's kind of a more of a decay atmosphere
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
in parts of our forest
Bit of
area.
fanghorn in there, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So exactly, this is what I'm getting at. In
Yeah.
that was kind of one of the things I wanted to explore in my own work was there was the forest that they had to leave in book one to get out onto the plain to have their big fight and everything, but everyone dreaded that forest, and no one wanted to go there half the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then I have the forests in the foothills of Dania, which especially the Scolani characters are very like they have fond feelings about this forest, and everything is lively and fresh and new. And
Hmm.
so yeah, even forests can have different qualities that can feel magical or almost like and another magical element is curses. As a
Uh,
curse bound, are we cursed, in some way, shape, or form?
yeah. Yeah, I
So,
think forests are in part magical because there are larger forces than ourselves.
mhm, yeah,
And that is
the
something I
unknown,
feel that we need to confront in fantasy helps us to do that. That there's something bigger than us out there. That perspective shift. That this forest is a life that is vast and it's ancient, and in the face of that, we're really very small. There's something humbling about being in the presence of something so big, and it's alive, right?
right?
So there's a lot, and it can be threatening too. Being put in your place like that is frightening, right? Um,
Humbling.
Humbling and frightening it can be, depending on your perspective. But yeah, I think that's the significance of a place that it feels magical. And for some people, it's mountains, and for others, it's the ocean. But anything that's vast and ancient and can have that effect, I think, on our minds. And there is a kind of magic in that perspective shift as well, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a good
Um,
do that
it,
for us.
did we? So on whether or not fantasy needs magic,
Yeah, let's determine this forever now. We're going to answer the question right here, everyone. So whenever you wonder, this is it. Does fantasy have to have magic to be fantasy? Is that an essential element in if there is unambiguously no magic in the story, does that disqualify it from being fantasy?
I don't think so. I think there are other means of creating a sense of wonder,
Uh-huh.
and uh, there can be other fantastical elements. If it's a secondary world and there's a sense of wonder based on some of the things we're discussing here, I mean, I don't even know if I needed the prophecy, um, because I have a secondary world. It mirrors the real history fairly closely, but I have a more or less a portal in the mountains that you come through to go from the old world to the new.
Yeah,
And I have another fantastical element is an all-female warrior tribe,
Golani. Yeah.
Golani. I feel like it still would have been a fantasy story without all the prophecy stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you
Now, I
know
would
what?
say
I
the
don't know.
history in your case is more of a stepping off point,
Yeah,
really. It's
yeah,
not historical fiction by any means.
right.
Historical fantasy seems the much more accurate label here.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there are even in book three, would you argue then that as much as I felt an increase in this sense of prophecy and everything else and fate pulling at things, would you argue that you could still come away from this trilogy as the reader, not as a character within the story, but as a reader, being able to say, yeah, no, this I can explain this. This is maybe some of the characters believe in this, but as a reader, I don't need to believe in this to be invested in the story.
I I wanted, and I do believe that you could explain as a reader,
Yeah.
walk away saying, yeah, it was just all their explanations and coincidences and explainable items. But I wanted the reader to feel more and more like the inevitability of this really being destiny. Um, because I really do feel like we have something inside of us that we have to move toward, and we have the agency to create a destiny in a way.
Mm.
So, that's free will. And my whole where I land on free will versus fate is um, we can create our destiny and then move toward it. And that should be a positive thing. It should be rooted in love, and it should be something about um, the ongoing aspect of, why are we here? Well, it's got something to do with loving one another
Yeah.
and what's going to come behind us.
Experiencing that communion that I was talking about earlier, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. So fantasy through magic restores a sense of communion, of meaning through communion to us as humans. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
That it can do that. Not all fantasy has to do that.
Right.
Certainly, many stories that would be counter evidence to that claim, but I feel like that is an important thing that fantasy can do, and many of our favorite books do that, don't they?
Right. And I think mortality is a big part of all this
Yes.
because, we one of the things humans have to do and have always had to do is come to terms with our mortality.
Hmm.
And well, and the elves are immortal, so hence magical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to decide. You know, we're all going, so we have to decide what to do with what we've got here and now.
That's Gandalf tells Frodo.
Exactly right.
Uh,
One of the greatest lines of all time.
yeah.
But it's just I wanted to create a legendary feel as well as this, um, and I think that's what a lot of fantasy stories seek to do, and certainly magic plays a part of that.
Yeah.
The legendary feel, the mythic, um, you know, the so I I do feel like it's an important ingredient, and I feel like I would never want to see um, people say, let's, or for there to be a trend for less magic. I wouldn't want to see that.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
love reading stories with magic in them. I just didn't want mine to feature magic in a certain way.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's a really fun aspect of your writing, actually.
Thank you.
That in a similar way, I felt engaged in the story. A similar thing happened when I was reading the Warlord Chronicles. It's like, well, okay. And you gave me something as a reader to engage with. Like, all right, is this really prophecy, or are the characters just making this happen because they think it's prophecy? You know, is it like, when somebody uses a dummy pill and a patient gets better because they believe, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that all sounds very scientific, but that's kind of magical too, isn't it? If
Yeah.
people can make themselves better by believing in
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
right?
They say prayer is the same way. The people who pray when they're ill
Yeah.
are more likely to heal.
Or the people who have other people praying for them.
Yeah, yeah, even that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, is it, that's what I say. The power of what we've got going on there, people call it the subconscious or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And you hear all the time that our conscious mind is what, 10, 15% of our brain's capacity or whatever.
Something like I don't know how
Yeah.
much to believe in that, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So what's all the rest of it, you know? And
yeah.
our dreams, a connection to that. That's another thing that, dreams
Yes,
are
yes.
magical.
They are. There are individual myths. Our dreams are. They function so much like myths and old stories, don't they?
Yeah.
And on a very symbolic level, let's say. Yeah.
I guess I could tell my most meaningful and possibly magical dream story.
Okay.
Uh, my mother was quite ill, and we knew she was near the end of her days. And my sister was had moved in with her and was staying with her and taking care of her at the very end. And they live an hour away. And I was told that even my mother knew the end was near.
Yeah.
And I had a very crisp, clear dream toward morning. It was right before I woke up, and it was just, you've had these very vivid dreams, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I was walking through what felt like and appeared to be Dania, and I was approaching a gate in a wall. And as I got to the gate, it suddenly became the 6 foot tall fence at my childhood home. And
Hmm.
I heard voices on the other side of the gate, and I began to recognize them. And there was a tinkling sound, and it was the wind chimes my mother used to hang at my childhood home.
Oh, wow.
And when I opened the gate, there was our old picnic table with the umbrella up, and my dad, who had passed away 10 years prior, was there sitting with my mother. And he looked up and he said, "Don't worry, sport. I've got this. I got her," which
Wow.
gets me every time. But I woke up that day, and within a couple hours, I got the call that my mother had passed.
Wow.
So, you know, it, is it magic? I knew she was going to die. Did my subconscious brain just supply all of this? Part of it, the fact that it was tied to my own storytelling in the beginning of it, and the fact that my dad was so vivid, their voices were so clear. Even the wind chimes, which I hadn't thought about in years, I hadn't, and it was the exact sound of the wind chimes.
Wow. Well, we're not going to be able to top that, Vaughn. So, and I don't know if I'm any good to keep talking right now anyway, but that's amazing. Yeah. Thank you
So
for sharing that. And that is magic, of a sort.
yeah,
Yeah.
magic exists,
Yeah.
whether we
There you
need
have it.
stories or
There
not.
you have it. So not only is magic important for fantasy, it's important for life.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. I think we'll have to end on that because I'm done.
I hear you. Me
But thank
too.
you for sharing that. That's beautiful. But thank you everyone else for watching. Go check out the Sundered Nation trilogy. It's
Please.
brilliant. It's beautiful. Starting with the Severing Sun, and then Bold Ascension Book Two, and then finishing with this beauty right here, Destiny's Doom, and it is actually the handing off of the torch in a sense, isn't it?
Oh, very much so.
You're working on. Can you tell us, please, before I let you go, what you're working on now, and what are the best places to get a hold of your books?
So my books are all available through Amazon, but any bookstore can order my books. They are from a printing source that puts them on IndieBound and all these websites that you can order from, and they're available in Barnes and Noble. And um, but anyway, yeah, I am working on the book four, which is already a trilogy. Four, five, and six are part of the same series.
This is a
Um,
story that you already kind of know. You actually wrote this before Sundered
I
Nation.
did, I
Yeah.
did.
Okay. Yeah.
So I began with the story of the children, which many of whom you will see born if you read the Sundered Nation.
Yeah. I
And
can't wait to see Bryn. I'm just very excited for her.
Bryn, the person on the cover of book
Yeah.
three,
Yeah.
is features very prominently. She's a child in this story. And
Beautiful covers too, by the way. We didn't even talk about how wonderful your covers are.
well, thanks. Yeah, I really love them, and I'm so grateful. John Anthony DiGiovanni is my cover artist, and he did a
Great artist. Yeah.
fabulous job. Yeah, he's a guy who reads and formulates. I like he comes up with the settings. We talk about it a little bit, but he would come up with these settings, and they'd be like perfect. They just fit so beautifully. So
Well,
yeah, that's a real blessing. But yeah, book four, I'm about halfway through the rewriting. What happened was I wrote it years ago.
yeah.
I am not looking back at it. I'm just rewriting it
Okay. Okay.
from scratch. So I'm about halfway through a full draft of book four, and
Wow.
hopefully within a year or so, I'll start to make those available. Speaking of books being available, you're on an anniversary, right? Or as we talk here, is it
Yeah. What is this? Oh my goodness, you're right. So June 21st is the anniversary of the release of The Prophet of Adan.
Prophet of a
Book
Dan?
two. Book two. Yeah.
Some magic happening in that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Some big time magic going out. Being unleashed in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Unleashed is the perfect word. But
So, yeah. Well, thank you, my friend. This has been a really beautiful, magical conversation
yeah,
today.
just a delight. Thanks so
I
much.
appreciate you, and I love your writing. And go buy Vaughn's books, everybody. But that is it for us for now. Until next time.